Do you love movies? So do I. What's up, y'all? It's KB, and I love movies, inviting you to listen to The Conversation, a film podcast where passion meets perspective and opinion. From the old school to the new, I invite a guest on to discuss the movies that thrill us, challenge us, break our hearts, or even blow our minds. There's always new episodes dropping wherever you get your podcasts. So join the conversation. We don't just watch movies. We love talking about them too. The Conversation with KB Loves Movies, a part of Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Hey, this is Jason Kleberg from the Force 5 podcast, a show that forces a guest to come up with a movie-themed top 5 list topic, and then we reveal our picks on air. Top 5 heist films, top 5 tearjerkers, top 5 movie dogs. Every show you'll be asking yourself, what would be on my list? Guests include directors, screenwriters, actors, podcasters, musicians, authors, and even a professional wrestler. Subscribe to the Force 5 podcast, and you won't just be a listener, you'll be a list nerd. The Force 5 podcast, available wherever you're listening now.
Welcome to Wake Up Heavy, my weird dad's weird podcast about weird movies.
Calling on all the spirits of everyone who's ever died in this house. Jessica. I'm calling on all the spirits of everyone who's ever died in this house. Jessica.
Paramount Pictures presents Let's Scare Jessica to Death.
Well, hello, listeners. This is Mark, and this is Wake Up Heavy Recollections of Horror, and someone has gone and done it. Let's Scare Jessica to Death is available to stream on Shudder, so get on it, people. It really is one of the most worthwhile streaming services for the price, and you can check out the annual price. Mine renewed on the same day that this movie premiered on their site. To be honest, it makes the whole year worth it, and everything else is gravy. Reflecting Skin came prior, Don't Look Now, The Changeling, all these movies that I've mentioned, it easily makes this very low annual fee worth it.
Dreams or nightmares, madness or sanity. I don't know which is which.
Let's Scare Jessica to Death.
And I actually got excited. I saw this the day before, the last day of February. A lot of times these announcements come weeks ahead and then it's wait. But this was the night before, and I thought, just overnight, that's all I have to wait. And then I can watch it. Right when I got home from work, I tuned in, took notes, figured I got to do something on this. And it does fall into the why didn't I rent this category, because I remember the title from years and years and years ago, and I'll kind of talk about that in a minute. It'll probably be a little bit longer than most of these side episodes.
It's time for another tangent.
I put the Women in Horror Month in a playlist, and really all that does is combine the episodes that are already on the SoundCloud page, and then I thought, well, maybe I'm dumb. I should have done that with the Why Didn't I Rent This stuff. But I think I'm still kind of stuck on the idea of just having these in rotation and then compiling them when I have about an hour or so worth of stuff. If for some reason that doesn't appeal to people, let me know. I, for some reason, prefer that idea. I don't know why. It kind of unclogs the episodes. And since I'm doing all these different side things, I kind of want it to keep it as clean as possible for the iTunes feed and all that stuff. But if you'd rather that I just create a playlist with these, that's fine too. Let me know one way or another if you have an opinion.
Jessica, why have you come here?
Okay, I'm going to use the synopsis from the Psychotronic Encyclopedia film for this because it's actually right on the money. Let's Scare Jessica to Death, 1971, Paramount. Producers, Charles B. Moss Jr. and William Badalto. Director, John Hancock. That's his name. Screenwriters, Norman Jones and Ralph Rose. Called an unsuccessful mixture of Carnival of Souls and Night of the Living Dead, this debut by director John Hancock, Bang the Drum Slowly, is an enjoyable shocker. Zora Lampert, recently released from a mental hospital, purchases a farm in Connecticut with her classical musician husband. Her tenuous grip on reality crumbles with the arrival of a strange guest, Gretchen Corbett, who turns out to be a female vampire. Lampert stands out in a cast of stage and soap opera actors. And as happens in some of those reviews, it's not entirely correct. That character is not played by Gretchen Corbett, although she is in the movie. She plays, quote-unquote, the girl. The character he references is actually played by Mary Claire Costello, who had a long recurring role on The Waltons. And I have seen this in another review online as well, and I'm not sure what. I think they just assume the girl is the girl that they meet at the house that they move into. And we'll get into all that, of course. And also those writing credits are pseudonyms for the director John Hancock and the original screenwriter Lee Kelchum.
Stay. Stay, Jessica. Stay.
So this is a movie that I really, really love. I've mentioned it numerous times in numerous episodes. I saw it a year or so ago, and it wasn't even on YouTube. I don't know where I found it streaming. But in the meantime, while I was searching for it on YouTube, that was my first discovery, of the Projection Booth podcast. It was actually up as a video, and I sat there and I listened to it while I was working, and I think it's a couple hours long, and this was still before I was really listening on my own to any podcasts at all. And so I sort of had the movie spoiled for me, and I didn't mind. They talked to, I think, the director and the writer of the film, and then had guests as they usually do. But it just made me want to see it more, and then I think I finally found it somewhere online shortly thereafter, and was really, really blown away by this little movie.
My eyes. Look at my eyes. Come with me.
It involves, or I thought it involved, well, back up. It involves one of my favorite subgenres, which I touched on quite a bit in the Women in Horror Month, especially when I was talking about Mia Farrow, that hysterical women, psychotic women, whatever you want, neurotic women, however you want to frame it. It's prevalent in this movie throughout. It's the same kind of tropes. She's just been released from a mental institution. Is what she sees and hears real? Is it supernatural? Is someone trying to drive her insane? And that last point is what I think the title confuses people about. And here's where we kind of get into what I thought the movie was about when I was younger. It's a tad misleading. It sort of sounds like one of the old Dark House movies where, you know, you have somebody and you're trying to drive them insane so that you can get their inheritance. Or it could even be like a Kids in the Woods type of movie where they're bullying the unpopular girl the whole time and she flips out and kills everybody. Or it could be a gaslighting situation, which is kind of what I thought it was. And I've had that idea, all those ideas in my head about the title before I finally got to see it. And I also, with the long title, kind of lumped it into those melodramatic horror movies like Whatever Happened to Baby Jane and Whoever Slew Auntie Roo and those. But it's not really any of those things other than the hysterical women bit. We do get into the supernatural, but it's just strung throughout with the mental state of the main character. That is the kind of driving force of the film, and whether or not she is losing it again.
For the first time in months, I'm free. Forget the doctors. Forget that place. I'm okay now.
The film opens with Jessica, her husband Duncan, and their friend Woody driving from New York to Connecticut in their big black hearse. And the hearse is just the first example of this kind of shroud of death that covers the movie. On their way to the farmhouse, they stop at a cemetery where Jessica makes a grave rubbing. And this is something apparently that she does. She ends up hanging a number of them in their bedroom. So again, they're surrounded by death. At the cemetery, we get the first instance of Jessica seeing the girl off in the distance, and one of many instances of her inner monologue.
Don't tell them. Act normal.
To get to their farmhouse, they need to cross over a cove on a ferry, and this kind of made me think about, of course, the River Styx and the ferry going across from one realm to the other. Once they get there, they encounter a group of old men who all have strange bandages around their necks and arms. They are not very friendly.
Look what they're driving. Damn hippies. Creeps. Good riddance.
To the newcomers in their hearse. And here we have kind of an example of the greatest generation and the baby boomers colliding, and this was a film from 1971, so that hippie generation was still in full swing at the time. When they get to the house, they start unpacking, and Jessica starts to walk up the front stairs, and she sees a figure sitting in a rocking chair.
You okay?
Don't tell them. They won't believe you. Yes.
Upon entering the house, Woody and Duncan also see the girl.
It's okay, Jess. I saw it too.
She is another kind of throwback hippie figure and is fine with leaving, but they ask her to stay for dinner. And then throughout the film, she's continually asked to stay longer, stay on, go ahead and stay on. And I found this interesting this time, watching it and thinking it felt like she was just, Jessica that is, felt like she was just relieved that the girl was actually real. And even though she can tell pretty quickly that Duncan and Woody are both attracted to her, it seemed like she's keeping her on to keep herself grounded in reality. They all eat dinner together, and Jessica has a moment where she is staring at her plate, and I think they've cooked steaks or something, and so some of the blood and juice has run off the meat, and she's very preoccupied by the sight of the blood. And this kind of led me to believe that, although it's never stated, that she may have attempted suicide at some point. There are a couple of other instances where the sight of blood has a very strong effect on her. And as I mentioned, from the beginning of the movie, we've had this voiceover, this inner monologue. And once Emily, the other girl, arrives, she starts hearing her voice in her head as well. And to make things even worse, Emily suggests after dinner that they have a seance. So bonus points again for the seance. It's kind of a half-assed seance, but Emily instructs Jessica to call on all the old spirits that have died in this house.
Don't you believe in spirits? Nothing's ever completely dead.
Calling on all the spirits of everyone who's ever died in this house. I'm calling on all the spirits of everyone who's ever died in this house. Give us a sign. Give us a sign.
She gets very emotional about it, and she hears numerous voices in her head. And we don't know, and she doesn't know, if she's the only one that this is happening to. It's implied that no one else hears anything, and they kind of laugh it off. But is what she's hearing real or imagined? So they've moved from Manhattan to Connecticut to, I guess, escape her problems. And as we all know, you can't escape your problems, especially when they're mental health problems. What they escape to is an old farmhouse with apple orchards. And so I guess their design is to harvest and sell the apples, as well as to sell much of the old antiques in the house. And so they make a few trips into town on different occasions, and they are continually being harassed by these old men.
What happened?
They probably get back in their cages after dark.
And it's all just old men. There aren't any women in this town. The only women they encounter are Emily and the girl in the cemetery. They're just so ominously antagonistic. It's strange, and it started to make me think of a couple of other movies. One is Messiah of Evil, and then Carnival of Souls, which was mentioned in the Psychotronic Encyclopedia film synopsis or review. And I guess the connection I made in my head is that we have these younger people, these quote-unquote hippies, and Carnival of Souls, she's not so much a hippie, but she is a younger woman, encountering these older people, these ghoulish, antagonistic, mostly silent, ominous people. But Jessica and Duncan think that they find an ally in the antique store owner who has made a similar move out of this city into the country.
Oh, more refugees from urban blight, eh?
He gives them a little backstory on the photo that they've brought in from the attic of the house. The family that lived there, and supposedly the daughter Abigail drowned in the cove on her wedding day and is said to haunt the town as a vampire. I don't know how drowning turns someone into a vampire, but that's the lore of the town. Duncan tries to stop Sam, the antique store owner, from telling the story on a couple of occasions because he is afraid that it will bother Jessica and maybe push her into a relapse. She's fascinated by the story and doesn't seem bothered by it at all. But this kind of, again, brings up that idea of escaping your problems. And here they are, I guess, thinking that, the pressure of the city is too much for her. But it also sort of plays into something that would become a pretty big trope in horror novels and movies in the 70s and 80s, and that is escaping urban blight. Books like Harvest Home from Tom Tryon, Stephen King's The Shining, the movie Burnt Offerings, where people are leaving their hectic city lives for the bucolic countryside and usually not faring too well. There's something evil and ancient there that they've lost touch with living in the city. And so that enters this story a little bit too. They have gone from hectic Manhattan to possibly haunted Connecticut.
Time for another tangent.
And I need to make a correction here from way back with the favorite subgenre episode. I think I lumped Let's Scare Jessica to Death into the haunted house subgenre and got called out on it by Chris, who has supplied the music for the show. I guess it had something to do with the seance, something to do with the photo, something to do with Emily and her character. So it's a stretch. I probably wouldn't put it in that tenuous at best connection to the haunted house subgenre. So take it out of that one and slide it into hysterical women, which is where it firmly belongs. Shortly after hearing the story about Abigail Bishop from the antique dealer, Jessica finds her gravestone on the property and is about to make a rubbing of it, and she sees the girl again off in the distance. She decides to give chase, and the girl leads her to a spot where she finds the antique dealer's body. And again, the sight of blood has a very strong effect on her. Duncan arrives. He and Jessica chase down this girl who has, like many of the men in town, a bandage around her neck. Jessica tries to interrogate her, but she can't speak. They go back to the spot where the antique dealer's body was, but it is now gone. And Duncan thinks that she is relapsing and suggests that she go back to Manhattan. This leads to a fight.
Leave me!
Will you be quiet? Will you be quiet? I'll hear you!
Who cares?
And Jessica kicks Duncan out of their bedroom. He sleeps on the couch and is seduced by Emily. The next day, Jessica is rummaging through the attic again and finds the photo that they sold to Sam, the antique dealer, of the Bishop family. It is back at the house. She finally notices that Emily looks like Abigail.
I was just looking at the picture. Looks so much like you.
Emily tries to seduce her up in the attic, and Jessica rebuffs her advances, but Emily gets her to go for a swim with her. Jessica doesn't want to get into the water because she had a strange encounter earlier in the cove, but Emily pushes her in and starts roughhousing with her. As Jessica gets out, Emily disappears, and Abigail's corpse rises from the water. Jessica escapes from Abigail and makes her way into town, where she encounters the group of ominous, antagonistic old men. As she turns to leave, she bumps into Sam Dorker, the antique dealer. She notices that all the old men have vaginal scars on their necks and or arms. It is implied that Emily and or Abigail has turned all of the old men in town into vampires. And I think I'll stop there with plot and characters. I don't want to give away the ending or the fates of our three main characters. You need to watch the movie and be surprised. I did kind of want to talk about a few of the technical aspects of the movie. The soundscape is really interesting. There are two composers listed for the film. We have Orville Stober and then Walter Sear, who is credited with the electronic music. And this made me think of Images that had, the John Williams score and then the interesting percussion in it. And the electronic music is quite interesting in this. And it was a little bit, I didn't really remember it from the first time I watched it, but it lends a very interesting atmosphere to the movie. I guess that's what I'm trying to say as I fumble along here. And it also struck me as a little bit similar to some of the music that Chris has supplied for the show. So I'm going to try and find the clip that made me think that and then play his music next to it here. But along with the music, there is just interesting usage of background sounds and kind of filters on voices. I noticed when I was watching it this second time that there was a strange random scream in the background early on in the movie when they're crossing the ferry. And then during one of their meals, about halfway through the movie, all four of them are talking. We're usually focused on Jessica. The camera's focused on Jessica. And it's almost as if we're hearing the discussion filtered through her ears.
So there was this enormous cake that was terrorizing England.
Angel's food or devil's food?
Devil's food cake. And it would ooze into the windows and into the doors and engulf the people. It'd eat everything in its wake. It was traveling down the coast from Scotland. Whenever it would come to a town or a village, it would call out, "Here comes The cake! Here! The cake! BBC sent out.
At one point towards the end, when Emily and Jessica are in the attic, there's this strong sound of wind. Even though they're inside and the trees aren't moving, it kind of it adds that ominous feel to the film, yet it's almost inappropriate for the scene. And I think this is sort of where some people have trouble with the movie. It's a little bit goofy, and Zora Lampert's performance can be off-putting. The first time I watched it, it was off-putting to me a bit, and I didn't even notice it this second time. I don't know what changed. It makes more sense on the second viewing how she approaches this character. So much is made of her mental health, her mental state, her state of mind, by herself and by her husband. And it just made me think, and I actually work in a psychiatrist's office, and I don't deal with patients a lot, but I do see many of their interactions with the staff. She has this strange affect throughout the movie where it's as if she is really struggling to have the appropriate emotional response for the situation. So a lot of times she has a real goofy grin on her face and it doesn't quite fit the scene. A lot of her affect and a lot of her intonation is off throughout the film. Not being a mental health provider, but just being kind of in that world, it rings true to me that I don't know how I'm supposed to act right now. I think it's this way, so that's what I'm going to try and do, and it comes off as forced. And I firmly believe that is an acting choice that she made for this character, not that she was a bad actress. So maybe try and look at her performance through those eyes, and it might not seem as funky. Apparently, this movie's original title was called It Drinks Hippie Blood, and the story was very different from what was shot. The director reworked the script and changed the tone from more of a spoof or parody to this fairly serious psychological horror drama that we have. And that title alone, It Drinks Hippie Blood, makes me think of I Drink Your Blood, which also involved hippies. I guess the story was about some hippie campers who get attacked by a creature that emerges from a lake. So the basic idea is there, but everything else was changed. And I discovered when I was listening to the Projection Booth's episode on this that there was a lot of interference from the producers. They were constantly saying, this from the script needs to be kept in, add this, do this. And the director was totally fine with it and did everything that they asked. And it still ended up being, at least in my eyes, a cohesive movie that works, even with all those intrusions, which is a rarity. A lot of times, producer intrusion leads to a mess of a movie. You get a lot of vanity casting. Hey, my niece would be great in this film. Johnny, put her in. Mulholland Drive has major plot points based around producers insisting on a certain actress being in the film, nepotism, all that stuff. So the director was apparently totally open to all these ideas, incorporated them as best he could, and came out with a solid, creepy little spooky, wonderful movie. And speaking of the director, John Hancock, he did Bang the Drum Slowly, which I mentioned while reading the Psychotronic review. Has been kind of a journeyman director, a lot of TV. He directed a number of episodes of the 80s revival of The Twilight Zone. The cast isn't large, but the main characters worked a lot in TV and Broadway. Zora Lampert, who plays Jessica, and Barton Heyman, who plays Duncan, her husband, actually have a strange little connection with the Exorcist franchise. Barton Heyman was Dr. Klein in The Exorcist, and I can't remember if he's the one that gets his nuts grabbed by Reagan or not. I don't think it's him, but he's in the room at that point. And Zora Lampert was in The Exorcist Part 3 as Mary Kinderman. She was also in a movie that I need to see again, Teachers, I think from around the mid-'80s or so. I remember watching that on either cable or video years ago. Kind of raunchy. I think Jo Beth Williams is in it, and the Karate Kid. Can't think of his name right now. Barton Heyman was also in Shock Treatment, the pseudo-sequel to Rocky Horror Picture Show.
That doesn't sound right.
Sorry, I choked again. Kevin O'Connor, who plays Woody, was mostly known for Broadway. He does have a few credits to his name on IMDb. I mentioned Mary Claire Costello, who was in The Waltons as a recurring character, and in the somewhat hit-and-miss anthology horror film Nightmares, which, if I'm not mistaken, and I don't know why I didn't look it up, starred a young Emilio Estevez. And then the girl is played by Gretchen Corbett. She had a long-time recurring role on The Rockford Files, which is what I remember her from. But she was one of those actresses that was on just about every single show in the 70s and 80s. She has a very distinct look, so you will recognize her right away when they first show her, if you are anywhere near my age, which is pretty old. Oh, and Zora Lampert, again, she had been acting since the early or late 50s. So she had been working for just about 20 years already when Let's Scare Jessica to Death rolled around, and continues to work to this day. So she's been around for a long time. I still don't completely recognize her face. She's quite a bit older, of course, in The Exorcist 3, and the part isn't that big, but I probably wouldn't have made the connection without IMDb. Okay, I think that wraps up this episode of Why Didn't I Rent This? Oh, you know what? Actually, I didn't even get to that point. I mentioned the title and how it, made me think of all these different scenarios. But I think the main reason I didn't rent the movie is that the poster and or VHS box art was horrendous. Give it a Google search and check it out. It's not even a scene from the movie. Something similar happens in the movie, but that is not the scene from the movie. That is not Zora Lampert. It looks more like Ruby Dee. I don't know what was going on with that poster, but it's awful, and probably the main reason I never rented it. I wish I had, because I probably would have loved it. Now we're at the end, and that actually wasn't too much longer than most of these episodes. So I probably left a whole bunch of stuff out that I wanted to talk about, but maybe we will revisit the movie with a guest sometime in the future. Until then, thank you so much for listening, and I did want to note that at some point today or overnight, I hit 1,000 plays on Wake Up Heavy, and that probably doesn't seem like a big deal to a lot of people. That is the plays on one episode for many podcasts. There are other movie podcasts that have 35,000 plays per episode, which I just can't even imagine. But I honestly didn't think that we would hit 1,000 this quickly, so thank you very much. I've noticed a lot of new listeners in new countries like Spain and Norway. I appreciate it very much. Thank you for listening. Patreon episodes are up. There's one on images, and there is one on the Psychotronic Encyclopedia of Film. Those are pay per creation, no monthly fee. And you can find me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram as Wake Up Heavy, all one word. And that does it for Why Didn't I Rent This? Volume 2, Episode 2 on Let's Scare Jessica to Death. Thanks and goodbye. Oh, and don't forget to wake up heavy. Who all have strained... called an any of those things. It is a hysterical... It is an hysterical women... Oh my God.